Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the show. It is Monday, the 30th of October, meaning Halloween is tomorrow. Not one of my favorites. For that matter, most holidays are not my favorites. I'm not a holiday kind of person, since they've all been co-opted by the commercial interests. I'm a little out of it today, I must admit. Couldn't sleep last night. I mean, really couldn't. Amazing. So I read most of the night. I'm blaming the World Series game. If you bothered after the Steeler game to turn to baseball, there was a game for the ages going on. So I couldn't peel myself away, even though I don't have a horse in the race. Jeez. All right, so the first shoes dropped this morning, as we were told it would. Paul Manafort and one of his associates, both turning themselves in to federal authorities. The charges against them serious and numerous, and mostly have to do with financial wrongdoing, but I always felt that in dealing with this bunch of grifters and crooks, that financial wrongdoing was going to be the way they're going to come down, including Carrot Top there in the White House. So it's early in this process. Two shoes have dropped. I think we want to think in terms of a centipede, in terms of the number of shoes that could come down. It'll be interesting and it'll be ugly. And I'm too tired today to maybe rise to the occasion. I'm told no audio. By only one person, so that might be somebody else. Want to tell me there's no audio? You don't hear me? Do you hear me? Asking. If you hear me, tell me. And since nobody is, I'm assuming we have no audio. I guess I'll keep talking, not about any substance, because, I mean, I don't want to steal everything from the program before. Okay, people are hearing me. Audio, I hear you, and I hear you. Well, David, why'd you gave Stephen here a heart attack? Damn it. All right, thank you, all of you who told me. So we're okay. We're easily spooked on this end, given the history. Okay. As usual, I'm not sure where to start, because I'm not going to go into the Manafort situation, because it's so early and I do not have access to a lot of stuff, so I'm just not going to go there off the bat. I imagine tomorrow we might talk about it more. I read over the weekend the receptionist here has a subscription to National Geographic, and every issue he finds something that blows him away and says, you've got to read this. And the one I read over the weekend was about by all indications, what the three happiest countries in the world are. I mean, where people are happiest. Now, I don't know but what's interesting about it is that it shows, and this is where I wish more Americans would get out and about. It shows that people can organize themselves in ways that really are very different from what we Americans know and then think is the way and society organizes itself and the values that are shared. And when you read about another country that has gone another direction, it truly is eye-opening. It truly is eye-opening. And obviously these countries where people are happier are countries with a much more egalitarian reality, where there is, well, in the case of two of them, nowhere near the wealth disparity. Countries that have a definite, defined social network that would prevent anyone from ending up on the streets begging or holding signs at intersections. It wouldn't be allowed because it simply is not necessary. And these places are as disparate as, I'll tell you, the countries that were named. Not surprisingly, you have a Nordic country because they always show very highly in these happiness indexes, and that is Denmark in this case. And then south of the border, Costa Rica. And it makes me wonder, reading about Costa Rica, why the heck all of these frightened souls, excuse me, running for their lives from, excuse me, it's my hay fever season and I'm just all running for their lives, would simply go to Costa Rica rather than try to get to the U.S., unless Costa Rica, which I didn't read here, has policies that are not necessarily welcoming to all of these folks in Central America that live in despotic or just totally failed governments, under those governments. But it is mind-blowing to see when a government and a people communally agree that certain things are the proper realm of government. And all of the things that these governments do for their people would be considered communism by relatively unschooled Americans, because none of these countries is a communist nation, not a one. Singapore, by the other, is the other one. I would not want to live there. It's way too autocratic for me. But people there express relative happiness. And all of the nations of the world are rated in this survey, and we come out very badly because Americans self-report as unhappy. And with reason. Americans are filled with anxiety. Americans do not have any kind of security in terms of a safety net. If you're living in a country in which you fear dying alone and impoverished, or not having access to good medical care, or not being able to have your children educated so they can have a better life, if you live in a country like that, or where you're one unexpected bill away from losing your home, from wondering how to feed your family, and yet you're working 2 or 3 jobs, it's no wonder that Americans report a lot of unhappiness. And our government continues to absolutely not deal with any of it, including, I might say, the Democratic Party. Because, I mean, think of it. Where did Democrats get lost? If we do live in a country in which so many Americans are working so hard and getting nowhere, and we don't come to them with programs. Here's what we want to do for you. And what Democrats instead come with are all these, they do get off on these sort of easy to undercut cultural, social issue things, rather than saying it is untenable that in a country like this, as wealthy as this, that any American should go to bed hungry, that any American should not be able to access public education of good quality for their children, that any American should be able to have a job that pays a living wage, rather than having to scrabble together 3, 4, 5, none of which give them any benefits, important benefits like health care, access to health care. Well, that wasn't really, you don't hear that from Democrats. And if they were to do that, would they not start picking up people that voted for Trump? Because I want to tell you, I am still confused about why so many counties, especially counties in states I know, like Wisconsin, that voted overwhelmingly for Barack Obama twice, then went to Trump. If they voted for Barack Obama twice, I don't think you can necessarily say they were so freaked by a black man in the White House that they would vote for this idiotic reality show clown. No, they voted for Barack Obama. So the Democratic Party is a mess. It doesn't know who to nominate. It doesn't have anybody I see now on the horizon stepping up, any new faces. And so when Trump now has the lowest approval ratings ever by any president ever at this point in his first term, that this guy could in fact be reelected, and it is possible. Because if Democrats and their supporters and their voters don't get out of their bubbles, we're screwed. We have got to, again, start talking to the other people who are put off by what they see as our constant self-righteous scolding about words and people and, political correctness. And if you think that that is not the case, if you think that that doesn't turn people off, I'll again give you the evidence of my extremely brilliant brother. He's not an idiot, but at one point in his life, he became I don't think he was a registered Republican, but he would no more vote for a Democrat than he couldn't stand them. He couldn't stand liberals, even though he was, like me, raised in the same family and really rather liberal with a good heart. He could not. And you know why? Because he lived on an American college campus. And he was so beaten up and beaten down and put off by progressives and they're actually sort of fascistic ways. Their unbelievable absurdity. He used to regale me, actually, with stories, memos that came to him, or stories about the school district that his children went to in Ann Arbor, and what was allowed and what wasn't. And it all seemed so damn absurd, so ripe for well-intentioned always. Oh, so well-intentioned. But somehow silly. Really easy to ridicule. And so he sort of went off into a conservative period, not because he signed on to what they were selling, because he was so repelled by what liberals and progressives were selling. And I understand. What brought him back was Sarah Palin. Thank God for her. And he's back now, but he also does still abhor the self-righteous progressives. And you know what? I'm not far behind him. Just saying. And I know, and so if you think that our part, the side I'm on and that you're on, even though you might be horrified by what I just said, if you think we don't have big problems and absolutely zero unanimity on what is important and how one gets the party back to being able to talk to Americans who are not college educated, Americans who are not, who live in all white enclaves or rural places. And unless we can, and I'm guilty of it too. I'm so human that stuff I say often does not necessarily comport with things I said the day before. Conform to things I said the day before. Because I'm a person. And we people are complicated. And I'm just saying, I think the Democrats are in for a rude awakening. I can tell that because we talk to each other and just to each other, we think that Trump is so clearly horrific that there's no way, right? There's no way these guys are going to hang in there. There's no way. Everybody we know, look at the polls. Well, I'm sorry. We are complacent. We are not hard workers when it comes to politics. We get outworked constantly by the other side, who always seem a little bit more passionate than we. I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm just babbling. Okay, so I'll stop babbling for a second and get to a letter I got over the weekend, which it upset me. And I found myself alternately arguing with it and feeling, what's the word? Feeling as if I should try to listen to what this person was saying. What a novel thought. My reaction was rage. Wow, dare you? And then I thought, maybe I can understand where she's coming from, okay? Because I'm sure she's speaking for an awful lot of others. Let me share it with you. If you heard Friday's show, I think it was Friday's show, yes, that I was most freaked out. This has to do with the men behaving badly story that will never stop. And is such a huge issue. And it's so complicated, too. And I'll just read some of what she said. I can't believe your interpretation of the situation about your friend and a hero of mine, Elie Wiesel. Now, I just want to correct something right there. Elie Wiesel was not my friend. I would love to have called him friend. I had the honor and pleasure of spending a cocktail hour and a dinner with him, with my family, prior to his giving a speech. And then after the speech, I did talk about the fact that I think I sexually assaulted him, that I stunned him. I could tell I did, but I just couldn't. I didn't know I was going to. I just grabbed him and kissed him, okay? Now, if a man were to do that, right, that would be a sexual assault. So I guess it goes both ways. So I said I sexually assaulted Elie Wiesel. I was also very upset that in a Washington Post story, he was pictured along with serial abusers like O'Reilly and Weinstein. And when I saw his picture, I thought, what the hell is Elie Wiesel doing there? What the hell? And then it turns out that one woman, apparently, a week ago, came out and said, again, photo ops always seem to be the place where it happens, at a photo op, Elie Wiesel, and since I've had my picture taken a number of times with Elie Wiesel, I don't know, it didn't happen to me, and he clearly liked me. We were having fun. I mean, I got pictures of the two of us laughing hysterically. And I bet I was flirting. Because as I said before, you mean we're not going to be able to flirt in the big lefty progressive world of political correctness? That's going to be gone. Oh, yeah. So I was off on a rant about how these things always get out of hand. And one woman had said that Elie Wiesel, now dead and unable to defend himself, that during a photo op, she had felt his hand on her behind. Now, I'll go back to the letter. I had to replay the part where you said, quote, his hand just came to rest on the woman's behind, end quote. Really? Says the emailer. So if a man put his arm around your shoulder and just happened to rest on your chest, it'd be no big deal? Yeah, that'd be a bigger deal because that doesn't happen. I mean, that would be... But when you think of how when we put our arms around each other for a picture, our arms and our hands are exactly, usually, at waist level. What sits at the waist? The top of your bottom. And so I can see where a hand resting at a waist can maybe seem to be at your bottom and could happen to be there. But I don't see that as copping a feel. I'm sorry. Excuse me, I don't. And I don't think that was what this guy was doing. You're right. I have no way of knowing that except having spent some time with him, certainly knowing about him, and never having heard any such thing before. And might I point out, no other person has come forward and said anything. She's one off. The writer goes on. I know you met him, etc., but how can you say, quote, I assure you this man is not a serial abuser? She's right. I cannot say that because I don't know him that well. And you can even know somebody very well, as it turns out, and people are finding out, and not know that they are serial abusers. But I'm sorry. I'm trusting my judgment here. I'm trusting my judgment here. There are no other whispers that I have ever heard. And the fact that he didn't seem delighted, but frankly startled when I kissed him. I don't know that a serial abuser would have not looked more, oh, hey, baby. Right? Whatever. The woman goes on. Maybe you got caught up in the moment, but surely you know better than to say something like that. No one knows what people are capable of. Give her a point. No one knows the secrets some people keep. I'll give her a point. I am surprised at you. I guess I'll give her a point. Can we, she says, she quotes me again, can we learn to differentiate, you asked at one point. And by the way, she says, can we, and then puts in parentheses, the stupid public, not you, of course. So clearly she feels that I am being condescending, right? And I don't agree I was being condescending. I was stating my opinion. Can we learn to differentiate between true assault and a temporary resting of a hand on the back? I don't know, okay? If somebody's hand taking a picture ended up on my butt, I have to tell you, in all honesty, I don't care. I don't feel assaulted. I don't know what that makes me. What does that make me? I don't feel assaulted. I think things have gotten crazy. And as I said, I don't want to live in a world where people are afraid to touch each other. I don't want to live in a world where men no longer have a clue how to approach a woman. I don't want to live in a world where men are considered the enemy. I don't want people. I want people to be able to be discerning. Is that possible anymore? I'm going back to her. Can we, the stupid people, not you, of course, learn to differentiate? You asked at one point. I laughed out loud, she writes, because that is exactly what you were not doing during your rant. Apparently with Bill Cosby, O'Reilly, and Harvey, what Harvey and Harvey do is sexual harassment and assault, and everything else is not. I didn't say that. Okay, this is where people start going nuts. I did not say that. Can you not understand that there are different types, levels, variations of sexual assault and harassment? Yes, that's what I was saying. I guess not, she says. To quote you, can you learn to differentiate? And that male caller who said he tells guys who are inappropriate to women, hey, that's not cool. Really? Does that do it? Just telling a guy that he is degrading and humiliating women? Hey, that's not cool? That's enough for him to change his ways? Well, see, here, now wait a minute. See, this is what happens. You scream and yell at guys. Then a guy calls and said, I tell men when they're doing this, that's not cool. Well, guess what? That's the first step that men have to do, is to shut down other guys. And you act like that's bad or it's not enough Well, I'm sorry. It's a step. That's a good thing. What do you want him to do? Shoot him? What the hell do you want him to do? Just telling a man that he is degrading and humiliating women, and you agreed with this. I was listening to a satellite radio show last week where the guys were saying that if women want to be taken seriously in the military or police, they're going to have to toughen up regarding the sexual harassment bullshit. I think you found your real peer group. She goes on, I'm a few years younger than you, and I am in total disagreement with your collusion with men on this issue. Touching is a human necessity, of course, but it must be done with our permission. I just can't. I don't want to live in your world. I want the world I live in to be better. I want men to be educated. I do not want them, the whole bunch of them, to be demonized. Men are in crisis now. They are. And I'm sure we can talk about that. They are dealing with something that's never happened to them before. White men, white heterosexual men. They're having to share. They're having to compete with women who were kept out of the game, with minorities, racial minorities who were kept out of the game, with homosexuals, for God's sakes, who were kept out of the game. So all of a sudden, a lot of their privilege ain't there anymore. Some of them aren't dealing with it very well, are they? But of course, these people were like they were before any of that happened. There are men who think being a man is to be dominant, literally. And they think that's what masculinity is. And if you think about it, that's what our culture teaches them. To beat up on them will get us nowhere. It's exactly the problem Democrats always have, self-righteously telling everybody you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, and not giving an inch, not listening, seeing a damn place where, I don't know, I'm sick of all you people who won't listen. Who won't open up, who have to demonize whole groups in order to get your head around something. I have been sexually harassed. I have been sexually assaulted. I think I know the difference. And I am not colluding with men. Whatever the hell that means. I'll collude with them when whatever we're up to is something I agree with. But I ain't colluding with Harvey Weinstein. Is our caller still there? I have two callers. Okay, let's get him in. Hello, caller. Hello.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hey, Lynn, over the course of the few days when you've been talking about this, one thing occurs to me, and I think it's mucking up the dialogue about this, is that I believe that there are legal definitions that are different from, say, my definition or your definition of, say, assault, for example.
Right.
I don't know where I learned this, but if you were in an argument with someone and threw a cup of water in their face, that's considered assault.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't think of it as assault. People say, oh, you just threw water in their face, but it is assault. So sometimes I think that kind of mucks up the discussion and maybe muddies the waters before it can get clearer.
Well, I think every state has different definitions of assault. There are places that never use the word rape, sexual, there are all kinds of different degrees. It's true. And I am just saying that, for somebody to I don't think somebody throwing water in somebody's face should be criminalized. Are you saying that's legally, a criminal? Legally, that's a criminal act?
That is.
I think that's bullshit. Yeah. I think that is bullshit. Well. But, whatever. No, agreeing on terms in this regard is very difficult, especially when it comes to men and women together, because we're all different. I don't know. But I thank you for that, because I think that is part of the problem. Thank you. Thanks for waiting. Bye. Okie doke. We have another caller. Yes, caller.
I waited patiently.
Ed,
how you doing?
Very good to wait patiently. Thank you.
Your writer, or the person that sent you that letter, seems to be a man bigot.
Yes.
I'm starting to call people with, It was, I was having a discussion on Facebook. A woman, it was a big thing, but she was a, quote, white woman, had said something about something, and a black girl was saying, here we go again, listening to these white women, blah, 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 blah. And she goes on, and I said, well, you're a bigot. What she was saying, she agreed with what she was saying, but didn't want to accept it because of whose mouth it was coming out of. And I went,
that's right.
You're a bigot. That's all I could say about that, And when you were for years, decades, if I was going to be in a picture with you, you very guaranteed my hands are probably at my side or in front of me. Very aware, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, anything. You probably experienced this. I'm very iffy about hugs for that reason.
Right.
I'm very iffy about it. Don't, if you're a woman, give me a hug. Like, how about we shake hands or give me a nod, let's bow. I'm not touching you.
And why? Because why? Why?
Because I'm afraid that something, that slip of the hand thing, you know what I mean, that you were talking about earlier. I'm not going to be anywhere near it, and if it's a small woman and my arms are long, I can accidentally touch her breast. By
putting your arms around her. Right.
Yeah, and was that intentional? No.
No.
Could it be taken as intentional?
Maybe, yeah.
Next thing you know, I am called a sexual harasser.
Right.
By accident. So no, don't touch.
But see, this is sad. This is what I don't.
Yeah.
This is what I think is an outrage, that we've gotten people now that we don't interact like we used to because the crazed take no prisoner police, just criminalize everything. They make everybody terrified.
And this is the reason for me. This has been going on for at least 2 decades.
Wow.
It's like don't touch me. It might be taken the wrong way by me and you. You know what I mean? It's like, is this a flirt? I don't know. So.
But do you think? Okay, let's talk about flirting. Don't you like flirting? Isn't that one of the great things in life? Flirting? No. You don't like to flirt?
I'm thinking about it because.
I mean, back in the day, I used to like
back
to
in the day. That whole flirting thing.
Yeah.
But because I might actually be oversensitive about this. I can't determine whether it's just somebody being nice or flirting because I'm inside my body, inside my head. This could be a man thing. You know what I mean? I could be taking it the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? Oh, she wasn't. I wasn't flirting with you. I was just trying to be nice. But I might think, especially if I find you attractive, I'm going to think, or justify it as flirting. You know what I mean? In my head. So, from my point of view, it's best to avoid the whole thing altogether. Believe me, I have a lot of female friends. You know what I mean? And Yeah.
See, I've always had a lot of male friends too, which is another reason that I know guys. I always liked the company of men. Always have liked the company of men, and I just don't like that they're becoming, like some. I mean, like there are people who just want them to. I don't know what. Shut up. Don't move. You can't even talk to me without asking permission. You can't look at me. You can't. What the fuck? I mean, is this coming mostly from young women? What is going on here?
It's one of those things, and you were talking about that earlier. Like with the trigger warnings and all that kind of nonsense,
and the safe places, and
and all that kind of good stuff. That's there's a whole group that, and I mean, so many people from so many different directions, and you have the internet that are hitting them with that. They're actually they don't really know what to do, so they're siding on the side of caution.
Yeah. I mean, a big thing when women started, when I was a young girl, at the sort of brink of this whole women's liberation movement, what we told ourselves is we are not the little sweet things that men would have us be, that we are strong. And what I see with a lot of feminists now is almost going back to we are little weak things, and we need to be protected, and we need rules where we cannot just interact with guys. There have to be a checklist. Can you imagine how romantic it is to be with some guy that you like, and he's got to, excuse me, could I put my arm around you? Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me, could I now, sort of pull you closer and maybe put my hand on your leg? I mean, how is that a sexual experience? How does that work? I can't even imagine it.
Neither can I. But it's not just a feminist thing either. That's also a racial thing. You know what I mean? That everybody's overly sensitive about everything. A Christian thing,
I'm so sick of it. I am so
Merry
sick
Christmas,
of it.
You can't. Yeah, everybody's in their little corners.
Hypersensitive. You're right. Everybody's ready to take offense at a moment's notice. Ready to take it to the mat. I am so fucking sick of it. I can't see straight.
Been arguing. It's like my new thing. It's like my new thing to argue about, and especially with the race thing. I said, what I've done, is create better arguments. Somebody comes at me with the racist thing, I'll argue.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's
right. Whatever.
You just come up with better arguments, and nothing triggers me. The little thing I came up with: you can give offense. That doesn't mean I have to take it.
Well, that's better. that almost sounds like Michelle Obama. When you go low, we go high.
Yeah.
You're better. You're better than me in that regard.
But that's like the thing is.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. I keep trying to think of a reason what somebody could say that would offend me.
Oh.
For instance.
I can be offended.
Somebody called me the N-word. This was last year, right before I was eating lunch at a little place in Peters Township, and me and my friend go in, and guy says, "These N-words are getting on my nerves." I'm the only N-word in there, and my friend looked at me like I was going to say something. He said, I said, "Well, dude, this guy's drunk at noon. How can I let that guy offend me?" You know what I mean?
Did the guy hear you say that? No.
Yeah. I said, he still believes that human beings can be separated into races. That's what he believes. To me, that's like thinking that the earth is flat.
Yeah.
So I can't let somebody at that level
get to you.
Offend me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I said, and I even came up with a meme that I said, I wouldn't have to look down on you if you didn't stoop so low.
I like it. That's good. I wouldn't have to look down on you if you wouldn't stoop so low. That's good. That's good. Hey, Clarence, thanks as always. It's always a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Laura writes, hang on here. It is obvious, I guess she's talking about, where'd I go? It is obvious that the emailer is younger than we are. Well, thank you, Laura. And I don't want to live in her world either. This country is in crisis. I believe women need to speak up, but they need to review their incident before speaking up. It won't be long before we will all need to walk around with our arms tied behind us so we don't touch anyone. If somebody brushes up against me, it isn't sexual assault. Now, if they grab or pinch, that could be. People brush against people every day. I would like a hug from Clarence if I ever met him, says Laura. Trump has tweeted on Manafort. He said this. Sorry. Is this it? Sorry, but this is years before. Sorry, but this is years ago, before Paul Manafort was part of the Trump campaign. But why aren't Crooked Hillary and the Dems the focus? Also, there's no collusion. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. That's all I have to say in response to that. And we have another call. Go ahead, caller. Hi.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi.
Good morning to you, such
Hi.
as it is. Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose it's a slight good morning since we have, well, I hope it's the first of many indictments.
Yeah.
Did you know this is the earliest indictment for a former member of a presidential campaign team in history?
Yeah.
It's never occurred before a president has served out.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, I'm referring to him as president. Before the occupant of the White House has served out a full year even.
Right.
But I digress.
Well, these guys they act fast. They are something. Real speed demons.
However, referring to like how you started off your show today, wasn't your brother just being overwhelmingly childish and self-indulgent? I mean, he's your brother, and I don't want to hit a sore spot, but whenever I hear that, I mean, he was refusing to vote. I don't know if he simply refused to vote, period, or if he was voting for Republicans. But because he felt that, when on a liberal campus, that people were oversensitive and quick to criticize and take offense, he was going to vote for a party that made life far more difficult for women.
Okay, here, I just want to, let me insert this. Okay, let me insert this. I don't know that he voted for a bunch of Republicans. I think he started just sitting it out. He just started sitting it out mostly. But I think he's emblematic of how much progressives, when they get off on their little political correctness crapola, don't turn people off, including a lot of independents, including a lot of people who would be with us if they didn't think we were so highfalutin. I'm just saying.
I abhor speech codes on campus. I abhor people who essentially go looking for grievance. But let's turn this around, because I think you're letting the other side frame the argument yet again. I mean, we've been called, let's see, what are their cute little nicknames? We're useful dupes, useful idiots, we're communists, we're un-American, anti-American, we're amoral or immoral, because they're the moral majority. We are, libtards, moonbats.
Yeah, but we don't have names for them? We don't have names for them?
Brown shirt slash, I mean...
Yeah.
I just think...
Yeah.
Let alone, look at what the last president of the United States, let's hope he's not the last, had to put up with. the epithets and racial invectives he was subjected to. Look at what Hillary Clinton had to put up with as a candidate from the right. Yeah. And by the way,
so what? They're deplorable. I just don't want my side to be deplorable. And I'll say it again till I'm blue in the face. I don't care what extreme on what end of the spectrum is telling me what I can do, what I can say, who I can be with, what is my proper point of view. Anybody who tries to tell me to encroach on my freedom, I don't like them.
Lynn, I totally agree with you there.
Well, you don't think our side has the same tendency?
I don't think that like a campus speech code, which of course should be abolished anywhere, and I don't even believe in hate crime legislation because I don't particularly care why someone commits a crime against another
I agree.
person. But when you look at is that real oppression as compared to I don't know Jeff Sessions deciding that racial profiling and a documented history of police departments treating African Americans in custody more harshly, that's not really important. And gay people, well, of course businesses should be free to discriminate against them if it offends the business owner's personal beliefs, even if it isn't a religious institution, even if the people who work there or own the place are simply religious.
But that's not what that's not what I'm complaining about. I'm not complaining.
I'm saying that I think a lot of this is, if you want to say white privilege, I think a lot of it is kind of white privilege to complain about that when you've got people, or maybe it's like straight white, middle and upper class privilege when there are a lot of people who face far more on a daily basis. I think because I've had African American friends, or like Clarence did shortly after the election, say, well, for us this is kind of another day at the office. This is another day at work.
That's right. Right.
And also, I just have to add something here. Aside from the joyous news about Manafort, let's hope it continues. Let's hope this is a first domino to fall. Manafort and Richard Gates, who continued to work for the Trump campaign long after Manafort was ousted. But Mark Halperin, remember Mark Halperin?
Well, yeah, and I've talked about him. I know, serial abuser. Yeah.
Yeah, it amazes me. And did he feel aggrieved? He's one of the most privileged people in media.
Yeah.
Utterly privileged. But he didn't know it was wrong to, just go up on a woman he found attractive who worked for him or worked, in a lesser position in the hierarchy and just start rubbing his clothed erection on her or fondling her. Yeah, how could you know that was wrong? After all, if they didn't welcome it, well,
that's he engaged in sexual assault.
He smiled at them.
Yeah.
They smiled back, and
Yeah. All right. Okay.
People who shape the political discourse.
I agree. I know all the media people, all the Hollywood people, the politicians, and any woman who has been in those environments know full well that they're often populated by men who engage in these behaviors. Not all of them, not even maybe most of them, but enough of them to provide women with a real minefield to engage. I am not okay. Well, I got to run anyway. But thank you. I do.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye. Geez, I didn't get to anything I wanted to get to. What is this? Mark writes, Lynn, it was Mother Nature, a woman. Well, why did we make nature a woman? It was Mother Nature, a woman, who put this little devil in our male heads that we have to fight with all the time. Most of us can do it. The Donald told you who the guys are that can't on the Access Hollywood bus. I don't know anyone who talks like that, and I've been in the Army and played sports all my life. Fantasizing, sure. Assault, no. I would like to have your letter writer explain how white women voted 53% for Trump. Yeah, tell me. Tell me. Yeah, so when I want to talk about the problem of male, there's a masculinity crisis. There's this toxic masculinity in our culture. And men, a lot of men and boys fall prey to it. It's the way we raise boys, the way boys are expected, are called sissies if they show emotion or kindness and this kind of thing. How women often, and ladies, you're going to argue with me on this? Women are often attracted to the bad guys. Why do we find them appealing while a nice guy is found? We cannot disengage, yes, our natures, which are not necessarily connected to our cerebral powers. There's a lot going on here. And women are not just victims. Women are players in the interactions between men and women often. And I think there's a lot of disingenuousness in these conversations. I just do. And I hope this is a watershed moment where a lot of men find out what their brethren do, and find out how difficult their female coworkers, how they're living in a different reality, often in a different environment, and have different stressors. But I want women to understand that men also are under stress. We can talk about white privilege. I know lots of white people back at, like, my home state of Wisconsin. They ain't privileged. I mean, there are a lot of poor white folks who don't know where their next paycheck's going to come from, who are struggling mightily in this economy. I don't. My son has a joke that he always tells me if there's a guy begging on the street and he's a white guy, my son says he makes a joke about their white privilege. These blanket statements and blanket indictments in which all white people have it great and all black people have it awful. I think if we could get off this racial crap and see that almost everything that we're dealing with is more socioeconomic, although the racial stuff is just, I don't want to say racial crap because it is so real. And then I want to end with the last line of my this letter I got, this email I got. Because she went from touching is a human necessity, but it must be done with our permission. And by the way, when you get that phlegm in your throat, as you very frequently do, don't cough. Coughing does nothing. You have to yak it up and then spit it out. You mean y'all want to see me? You want me to do that during the show? I know coughing's awful, not pleasant. I'm now trying to be better. I'm drinking water. I'm trying to stay hydrated. Excuse me. I am not going to Jesus Christ. I am surprised, she says, that a veteran broadcaster like you coughs phlegm. Coughing just moves it up and down your throat. Well, thank you very much. I appreciated that. So who knew that after that big rant, she gave me some medical advice, and I am most appreciative. Guys, I didn't get to anything I was going to get to. I don't know where the hell this show went. I'm sorry if I'm offending you, but I'm starting to pretty much not be able to stand anybody. I think that's what's happening. I'm gonna do a Ted Kaczynski and find some place in the middle of nowhere and just build a little cabin and sit in there. Not Ted Kaczynski. I'll do Thoreau instead. He didn't kill anybody, as far as I know. Jesus Christ. Goodbye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.